All right, welcome. This is chapter 3, part 2. We are going to dive into the different food guides, both visual guides, and dive a little bit more into the dietary guidelines and look at food labels or an introduction to food labels. So, as we finish chapter 3 on planning nutritious meals. So, when we look at the My Plate or what you might understand as a visual guide, these visual guides, such as My Plate and the Food Guide Pyramid, were developed to help people be able to get um, quick visuals of what to eat. And it is a uh, it's a simple visual clip art type guide that tries to encompass what the dietary guidelines tell us. So it's a quick way to help people plan nutritious meals without having to read the pages and pages and pages of dietary guidelines. So this is the what we call My Plate that was developed back in 2011. It has now since been replaced. Yeah, it has now since been replaced with the new kind of upside down food guide pyramid that was released back in January. But we're going to look at kind of the history of these different visual guides and the dietary guidelines. So, My Plate. It is the circular plate that technically, if we go back, let's see real quick if I can, yeah, pull this up right here. So this circular kind of plate model was first introduced way back in the early 1940s, as you see here, kind of as a guide for basic nutrition. And you see the different food groups. You see the leafy green vegetables and the fruits and the dairy products and the grains and the meats and the fats and so forth. And over the years, this visual guide went from a guide to basic eating to here you see in the 50s and 60s and 70s into more of a chart format known as the Daily Four. Okay, your milks, meats, veggies, and fruits, which they combined, and then breads. And then back in the late 70s, early 80s, they went to this chart format here. And then in the early 80s or mid 80s, they went to this circular method again, known as the food wheel, and divided it up into the 5 food groups where they separated fruits and vegetables. And then back in the 90s, we have the first introduction of this pyramid model where you see the basis and the 5 food groups in this visual format, this illustration on quantity of recommendation of eating. Then you see here in the 2005, excuse me, they kept the pyramid model, but wanted to include activity as you see here, and even they put in steps to healthier you. This was when did I first became a dietitian? Yeah, in 95, I think. 95, 98. So I remember when this was a big deal when it came out and they incorporated the dietary guidelines for Americans, and it included the first major real push of incorporating activity. I kind of liked it. I thought it was cool at the time. And my patients understood that. So kind of got the point across. And then in 2011, we went back to the circular plate model. Not saying that we went away from recommending exercise, but they focused more on the food groups and the quantity of the food groups. Then it got tweaked a little bit here in 2020. And now, as you'll see here in a minute, it has completely kind of been revamped and gone back to the triangle model. So, a lot of research does go into these dietary guidelines and the food models. it's pretty interesting, and you can follow along with that because the uh, these visual guides are developed by the USDA. They sponsor it, and in cooperation with the departments of health and, like I said, USDA, they really do a good job at setting these guidelines for Americans. So when we focus in on my plate, okay, the 2020 my plate, you see that there are 12 different nutritionally adequate food patterns that you can look at and get, or you used to before they changed it back in January of this year, 2026. The website is no longer available, I don't believe, for these different calorie breakdowns, but I'm sure that there's some. Last time I checked, it wasn't available. But I'm sure with the new dietary guidelines, within a few months they'll have this back. But nothing like latest and greatest research, right? But I really liked it, and the students that I used to teach or that I in previous nutrition classes, they would go to the myplate.gov website and look at that. And there are alternatives we can plan on, but when you look at the MyPlate, it focuses on limiting the saturated fat and sugars and promoting nutritional adequacy and moderation, which is really what we've all been, focusing on. So, mm, when you look at mixed foods, okay, when you look at mixed foods, um, notice that like pizza and lasagna and casseroles, they're going to have a variety or a mixture of the food groups, and we take that into consideration when we're doing our nutritional breakdowns and nutritional analyses. So we'll keep that in mind when we begin doing your case studies and planning nutritious meals. And there are more nutritional adequacy programs out there. There's apps. I mean, there's dozens of apps you can pay for or not pay for. There's free ones out there too. So, find one that you like. There's free websites where you can look up, and most restaurants you can look up nutrition. Well, you can look up nutrition information on websites as well. When we look at portion sizes, that's very important when trying to calculate how much you're eating. So you see here the dice is about 1 ounce per a dice, half a cup, a mouse, 1 cup is about a tennis ball, okay, or baseball, usually. Um, Yo-yo about the standard muffin, and bar soap about, or a deck of cards, your 3 ounces of meat. So when you look at standard serving sizes for cheeses, standard serving sizes for starchy vegetables, fruits, uh, vegetables, breads and grains, and meats. Visuals are very good for people to learn. And the food guide pyramid and the dietary or the food guide pyramid also gave pyramids for different um, cultural foods. So you see the variety that was offered here. Mm, the standard American diet, as I like to call it, or SAD, SAD, standard American diet, is one that does not include enough fruits and vegetables or dairy products, but in too much sugar, fat, and sodium. And you see where the My Plate recommendations are trying to change that here. And the struggle is real in the nutrition world. We're up against a lot as far as misinformation out there, the food industry, and sugar. Sugar is addicting. Um, it is real. So, speaking of sugar, we will dive more into carbohydrate counting, specifically when we talk about diabetes and looking at the amount of carbohydrates in foods. But the food lists that are available with these different My Plate models and dietary guidelines will help you with that. Okay. I'm not a big fan of, well, let me just put it this way. With my diabetes patients, yes, they have to count carbohydrates. Yes, because if they are injecting insulin, the amount of insulin that they inject is quantifiable to how much carbohydrate they take in, definitely. Um, so counting carbs more so than counting calories is um, kind of one of my mantras with my patients now, in the trenches, as they say. So when we look at labels, okay, let's spend a few minutes on labels and then we will be done with chapter 3. So when you look at the nutrition facts label, the first labels were related to food related illnesses and allergies way back in about the the 1860s and 70s. Around the 1900s, the uh, United States government tried to install some regulations related to misinformation and requiring labels to not mislead customers. In 1913, if I remember right, is when they first started having to record the quantity of ingredients in the food. And then in 1967, mandatory labels and a structured mandatory label for both food and cosmetics came into play. And then the big um, um, shift in the variation of food label came about in 1994. There again, I was a brand new, I think I was still in college back then. And I remember when this came out as well. And there again, I loved it. I thought it made everything clear, concise. You're able to compare apples to apples. And it has been tweaked over the years, but the same standard structure persists. You have the nutrition facts, you have the household measurements, the metric measurements, you have the amount per serving, the amount in this whole container, and you see everything's broken down in grams. You see major vitamins and minerals here, the ingredients here, food allergy information, if warranted, will be right in here. And we'll talk a little bit more in a minute about percent daily values. So these percent daily values, as you see here, are based on a 2,000 calorie diet. Okay. So I don't know about you, but 2,000 calories is an awful lot. So most of my patients were never based on a 2,000 calorie diet. So I, in my professional practice, I did not teach a whole lot from the daily values. I mainly wanted patients to focus on total carb, total carb, total carb, total carb. Because remember, I focused on diabetes and weight loss. So and besides, you're trying to um, talk to patients and educate students, and sometimes all of this information can make their eyes glaze over. So, quick, easy bullet points. The percent daily values oftentimes would confuse people. It's very valuable. It's a quick uh, method to compare, like peaches to peaches, soups to soups, if you're comparing foods. But just take that into consideration. It is based on a 2,000 calorie diet. So if you're not on a 2,000 calorie diet, you're either going to need more or less. But it is a good thing. Okay. The percent daily values was trying to strive as a rule of thumb to get 100% of the RDAs for that particular person, or as close as you can to their daily nutritional needs. Okay. Your labels also include health claims. On table 3.8, there are a whole list of permissible and legal health claims that can be promoted on food labels. Some of them's and relate some of these food labels health claims in relation to whole grain are controversial as far as uh, how do I phrase that? Some of these health claims can be controversial and are being looked at from the nutrition profession as far as whole grains. Let's just put it that way. I don't know that I want to go down that rabbit hole today. So, health claims, the FDA does allow health claims that are going to promote certain health benefits when consumed with a healthy diet. They cannot be misleading. They are the ones specifically structured for being light or lighter in calories right here. Free, high, more, low, reduced. You really have to watch out for that because there are governmental guidelines related to, and you see here, to be labeled light, it has to have at least a third fewer calories. Okay. So you really have to watch that. You have to um, healthy, um, use at your own risk when it comes to that. I like to tell my, and especially, oh my gosh, and especially, yes, when it comes to supplements, you, the laws related to supplements um, are kind of gray. And the FDA disclaimer here, um, these statements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration. This food product is not, excuse me, intended to diagnose, treat, or cure any prevent any disease. So it's really kind of buyer beware. They are getting better, however, at the ingredient in the food, and you can reach out to the manufacturer specifically. But when it comes to food labels, uh, and the nutrition facts label, they're pretty standardized, the nutrition facts label. Then we look at organics. So, and this is the last thing we'll focus on today. Yeah, I think so. Organics. So the being organic is also a label, a display on the label. To be quantified or excuse me, to be categorized as organic, the food must be without antibiotics, hormone, synthetic fertilizers, not be radiated, and so forth. So this is an excellent chart here from your textbook that looks at um, what is organic and what is not. And you see it goes in great detail here when it talks about GMOs, genetically modified products are um, not organic, as far as putting, where was the one here on manure? Yeah. Um, there restrictions on using raw manure, restrictions on using pesticides, and so forth. So I think that's a wonderful thing. Organic, that's whole food. You're always going to hear me promote whole food, and that is fantastic. Just know that there are labeling guidelines related to that. So 100% organic means 100% certified organic ingredients. Simply organic means at least 95%, and then made with organic ingredients, 75 to 90%. Okay. Okay, and you see an example here. When it comes to dietary software analyses, there are a variety of software out there that you can use. The government, there's a lot of really good government sponsored dietary tools that I do recommend and that we'll be using a few of. Okay. They're actually pretty good. And then lastly, when you look at the traditional diets and planning nutritious meals, you need to remember that there are different cultural and religious guidelines you need to follow. So the traditional Northwest European, the traditional Latin American, the traditional um, Asian and Native American, Italian, and Mediterranean diets, as you'll see here in a minute, are represented. Looks delicious. Yep. Italian and Mediterranean diets here, focusing on seafood, olive oil, red wines in moderation. And then the traditional African heritage diet. Okay, you're very popular in your leafy greens, your mustard greens, beans, peanuts, flatbreads, whole grain, plantains, okra, vegetables, sweet potatoes. Okay, delicious. And then your Asian diets, large amounts of vegetables, meats, shellfish, noodles, and then your Native American diets. There again, your corn crops, your tomatoes, your green leafy vegetables, beans, squashes, fish, wild berries, and so forth. And as far as religious influences, remember that uh, there are labeling on nutrition products, or excuse me, food products, um, oftentimes based on religious influences. So be on the lookout for that. Things like kosher and your different religions that, and there again, that's as varied as food preferences are. Okay. So there again, you take that on a case by case basis. All right. Please email me with your questions if you have any questions. And good luck with your assignments this week.